I realized pretty early on that cannabis makes just about everything better.
Welcome to the Greener Grass podcast from BlueBird Botanicals. I'm your host, Lex Pelger. Lia Arnsten is a professional runner who mixes her cannabis and her sport. She also teaches wellness courses that focus on mindfulness, fitness, cannabis, and nutrition. This makes her the perfect counterargument to the lazy stoner stereotype. Lia goes. In today's episode, she talks about how to effectively use cannabis products throughout an exercise session, how marijuana and meditation mix, and what it's like to be a sponsored athlete on the circuit. If you like cannabis and fitness, or you're looking for some motivation to combine the two, then you'll enjoy this chat with Lia Arnsten. This show is brought to you by BlueBird Botanicals, to spread education about cannabis and other things on the greener side of life. BlueBird CBD oil comes from farms in southern Colorado and is grown using only water, soil, and sunlight. Go to bluebirdbotanicals.com for more info. Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here in the BlueBird Library with Lia Arnsten.
Hey, how's it going?
Very good. Thanks so much for coming here.
Thanks for having me.
So you're the founder of You Canna Be Well, and you've turned your life into cannabis and fitness and finding that intersection. I was wondering, would you have imagined this when you were younger? Did you see this coming at all?
Absolutely not. In high school, if you had mentioned running and cannabis would be two of the things that made up my adult life, I would think you definitely had the wrong person. I was not big into athletics in high school, and I stayed out of pot and drinking and any other sort of recreational drugs until I was 18 years old. So in high school, this was definitely not on my radar, but life happens. Life introduces you to many things, and I realized that fitness, running especially, and cannabis were two tools that really helped me live a better quality of life. Whether I was struggling with depression and a run made me feel better, and smoking a bowl made that run feel better, or whether just inspiring others to tackle a new physical challenge that they've never done, or try new medicine that could very well improve their quality of life too.
And so how did you have a good first experience of each of those things, cannabis and running?
Well, with the running, first of all, I found that getting involved in any sort of exercise is going to be a lot easier and a lot more fun with a group. I was never one to self-motivate to say, I'm going to go on a 5-mile run this morning. I'm going to go to the gym. Instead, it was we as a group of women are working out together. We as a group are doing a fun run 5K together. And that's actually how the running got started, is my trainer down in Florida, she got us to this 5K, one of those color runs, and I realized not only did I enjoy it, I was actually sort of good at it. And that wasn't with me trying. That wasn't with me running my body into the ground and trying to beat the person in front of me. That was just me going out there, having a good time, and running. And then I realized that, well, if I enjoyed a 5K, as time went on, someone suggested a 10K, and then a half marathon, and then a full marathon, and I gradually started increasing my running distances. But as long as I went into it with that same mentality of, I am not here to compete against myself or anyone else, I am here strictly to appreciate the fact that my body can do this, and that I have the time and the energy to come out and run, that made running really appealing to me once I took out the competitive aspect of it.
And so it was a female-centric group that helped you to find that experience.
Absolutely. I've never been a gym rat. I've never paid for a gym membership. I don't even know what half of the equipment does at a gym. So for me, meeting with an amazing group of women who were all there not to compete with each other, but just to get stronger, healthy, and to grow together, that was really empowering. And it was less of the workouts that kept me coming back to the fitness group and more of just the amazing energy that was cultivated each time there. But then, of course, I didn't show up to a single workout sober. I realized pretty early on that cannabis makes just about everything better, along with exercise and running. And I found that by combining the cannabis with the exercise, it allowed me to enter a flow state where I enjoyed my workout, I enjoyed the run, and I was able to be mindful about my body so that I was getting the most out of my workouts while being mindful about preventing injury as well.
And were the other people in your group also into cannabis, or is that something that you did privately and they didn't mind too much?
It was a mommy and me boot camp, so I was out of state, so I would say I was probably the only one into cannabis openly, but they certainly appreciated my high energy when I came to class.
Did you even medicate for these longer runs, marathons, and things like that?
Oh yeah, my thing is that I don't run sober. Let's put it this way: if I were in a field and there was a stampede of buffalo coming and I was sober, I would just lay down. I wouldn't even try. Now, if I had a bowl, I'd outrun those buffalo, no problem. So for me, yeah, the cannabis has absolutely been able to motivate as well as help me recover. And so for the full marathons, my can equation, which is different for everyone, that's what I call what you use to feel better or work out. So my can equation would be a bowl or smoking something sativa before a run. And then throughout the run, using CBD, particularly edibles, to mitigate any pain that I have, particularly in my knee. And then recovery-wise, all of the topicals, all of the CBD, and a nice congratulatory bowl after the race really helps that marathon stay elevated.
Did you ever find that you accidentally consumed too much and it took away?
No.
So for someone looking for their own Canna equation, what advice would you have for them, and what typical regimens do you often see people employ?
A lot of the clients that I work with aren't your typical 420 crowd. A lot of them are going to be seniors, athletes, parents, professionals who either cannot consume cannabis openly for either personal or professional reasons, or they still have that stigma surrounding cannabis. So oftentimes when I first go in to talk to someone about developing a can equation, I figure out what they're trying to accomplish, both physically, mentally, with cannabis, and what products are best for them. Not everyone's a smoker. A lot of the clients I work with don't want to smoke a joint. I understand that. And because I promote a lot of wellness practices, I would rather they have a topical or an edible or a capsule, something that they can take daily to feel better. So I'll bring them a variety of products from edibles, lotions, tinctures, capsules, and then they can sort of play around with things. Try it for a week or two at different dosages, and sometimes right away they will feel better and they'll say, that lotion was amazing, that's perfect. Other times they'll say, that one didn't work so well, let's try something else. But more often than not, it's going to be the tinctures, the topicals, and the edibles that I'm really introducing to people. And eventually someone may say, hey, why don't you bring up a joint next time? But that's usually not people's first go-to when starting to play around with cannabis.
To back up a little bit, how did you find yourself going from something that worked for you to finding that this could be something that you actually advise others about and even turn it into a career?
Well, in my opinion, if once you found something that really improves your quality of life, it's sort of selfish to keep it to yourself. Now, knowing that I would not be able to copy and paste what I was doing for everyone else, I realized that there were tools that other people could play around with and use to see if it helped them. So I started with my favorite guinea pigs, my parents. And whenever they come out to Colorado, I would give them some edibles, I'd give them some CBD. And, just like a researcher, I'd be like, how you feeling now? How's your arthritis? How was your sleep? but how do you feel? And that was sort of how I started being able to develop this database of what's really working for people. What are people really finding is helpful for arthritis? What are people finding is helpful for sleep? And knowing that it won't be the same for everyone, but again, developing this database so that when I do start working with someone else who has arthritis, I can say, oh, this particular topical has been helpful for these people. Why don't you give it a try yourself? And so then soon word of mouth got around that I know stuff about weed, and my mom's friends started sending me emails, and other clients and patients started reaching out and saying, I want more information, or what can you suggest?
And so what do the array of people look like now that you're working with? What are their, not only where they're coming from, but what are the goals that they see with cannabis and working out?
A lot of people want to mitigate stress and anxiety, I would say is one of the biggest ones. And for that, I have found CBD, and if you're in a legal state, a ratio of CBD THC edibles are phenomenal for stress, anxiety, depression. And then the second most common, I would say, is pain, whether that's arthritic pain, back pain, headaches. I would say those are the most common reasons people are tired of taking a pill for something and really looking for a more alternative approach to their treatment. And so, again, I work with a lot of seniors who are coming out of that cloud of the war on drugs stigma, and they're really opening up to this idea of plant medicine. And you also get a lot of people who are very wary of opioids and other perhaps stronger, more harmful, more addictive things that people don't really want to be taking. And so after a knee surgery, they may say, I don't want to take the pills. What can you recommend? And that's when I am so grateful that companies are creating CBD products for people 50 state that they can access this medicine.
And it's interesting because you're talking about exercise and cannabis, and from what we're starting to learn, it seems like the endocannabinoid system might be underlying what they call the runner's high. And it's not as much endorphins, it's actually the anandamide and endocannabinoid system. And the idea that not only you're exercising to up your own endocannabinoid system, then you're giving it an extra boost with exogenous cannabis. I mean, it sounds fascinating, especially for people who are, getting a little bit older and want to stay in a healthy place.
And sometimes the biggest thing that seniors can lack is almost motivation or confidence to go out and exercise. And so by having a little cannabis beforehand, that may lower their criticalness of themselves, and it may get them a little bit more energized and excited to get on the stationary bike or to go out for just a 3-mile walk. And that's the biggest thing, is motivating and inspiring people with cannabis to get out and lead their best lives possible.
What was it like going from the one-on-one consultations to starting to do workshops and having whole groups of people?
So I really enjoy the workshops. I do the monthly 420 friendly workshops. And initially when I started these in Boulder, my goal was to develop the bud tender community in Boulder, because there's a great community in Denver, but Boulder, where I'm from, I felt like it was lacking. And there's not a whole lot of 420 friendly venues in Boulder also. But finally, I found an amazing art gallery, the Phil Lewis Art Gallery on Pearl Street. They said they'd be down for 420 events. Again, dab bar, edibles, no smoking because of the art, which I fully respect as a wellness coach. But I realized that I could reach more people by having these monthly workshops. And I realized that these workshops were actually attracting more of the canna curious than the 420 crowd, which was great, because people were coming in, people who wouldn't usually go into a dispensary, and they were learning about new products and new techniques that they could use for cannabis consumption.
And what were the topics that you would cover?
Oh gosh, we've covered everything from defining your purpose. That's a weighty one, but it was an important one to cover when we first started. Defining your purpose. May you have a good morning. Developing a 15-20 minute morning routine to start your day off right. I'll be hosting my second Mindful Mala workshop this weekend, so making the Mala prayer beads. And then in October and November, we'll be doing our Giving Gratitude workshops where people will come in and they will write 3 thank you cards to either themselves or people they appreciate. And then I will bring the stamps. I will mail them. But this is just to encourage people to show appreciation. So again, it covers a wide a range of topics, but the underlying theme is that we will always have edibles there for people to try. We will always have a dab bar there for people to play around with. We will always have a nice grounding meditation to start off as well.
I'm actually curious to hear more about the cannabis and meditation, because actually just last night I was thinking to myself after I'd smoked a little bit that for me, trying to meditate right after having imbibed cannabis is a little bit like lighting the monkey's tail on fire and then trying to teach him sign language. And I think, and that's just how my brain works, but I can understand for others it would be completely different. But I would be curious about what you see when people are first trying to combine cannabis and meditation and how you help them on that path.
Well, it absolutely is determined by what kind of cannabis you're consuming. For example, I would never smoke a racy sativa and then sit down to meditate. So definitely a higher CBD strain is something that, in my opinion, would put my mind in a good place to meditate. So for me, not always, but sometimes I'll notice that after a bowl, I will want to sit down, start a meditation practice. And what I feel like the cannabis does is it puts my mind into a hot air balloon and it just drifts high above the clouds so that anything that was stressing me out before no longer seems to matter. And I can get there. I can have that hot air balloon ride without cannabis, but that cannabis is just a little extra fuel in the balloon, So for me, certain products, certain strains can have a very calming meditative effect. But again, like any canna equation, it takes a little playing around to see what works well for each person.
In the workshops, what are some of those common questions that you get from people and their most common fears as well, especially for the canna curious?
I think one of the most common fears is getting a product that's not going to work for you, whether because it's not a good product and it doesn't work, or everyone's different and that one just doesn't work for you. So I think the biggest fear for people is wasting their money on something that doesn't work, which is why I like having the workshops and I like having the consultations so that people can try a number of products and know that it works before they go spending their money on it. Because I admit that CBD and cannabis, it can be pricey, especially if you're not a medical patient or if you live out of state. And so I think the biggest fear for people is just wasting money on something that won't work. So that's where I found the workshops to be very beneficial in introducing them to different products that they can try, they can sample, and then say, yeah, I really like that, and then feel confident going into a store and buying that product.
What plans do you have for the future and ways to continue your work?
I'm really excited you asked that because I got some really good things on the stovetop. In the fall and winter of this year, I'm going to continue with my International High Five Race Challenge, which is it's a challenge I set for myself to spend. Originally, it was going to be 5 months of racing, but then I booked a race in December. So it's 7 months of racing, 1 race a month to promote living your best life, and then also to raise awareness for various organizations and causes that are important to me. So I started the High Five Challenge in June by doing a half marathon in Banff, Canada, racing for Polar Bears International. And I will be ending my International High Five Challenge with a full marathon in Costa Rica for the International Sloth Foundation in December. And I have run every distance and for everything in between there. So that is what my calendar is full with for the fall and winter, in addition to the monthly workshops. And then 2019, I have some very exciting things planned. I'm stepping up my game. Instead of just doing 5Ks and half marathons, I'm going to start trekking. Here's what I like about trekking. It's different than hiking because hiking, you go there and then you have to walk back. Trekking, no, it's a one-way route. You go there and then someone picks you up. I like that. I can trek. So in the spring of 2019, I'll be trekking from Custer State Park to Devil's Tower, Wyoming, to raise awareness to rename both of those back to indigenous names to respect the sacred land that both of those are on. Ideally, Sitting Bull State Park and Bears Lodge National Monument. And then in November of 2019, so about a year from now, I will be trekking from the Atlantic coast of Costa Rica to the Pacific coast of Costa Rica to raise awareness about ocean and rainforest health and the importance of both. And I'm very excited to be having cannabis and CBD sponsors support me on the journey as well.
That is a lot of exciting stuff.
Yeah.
And what's it like not only to be a coach, but to be a sponsored athlete who actually has these companies behind them and companies that are happy to see you supporting good causes?
It's really encouraging to see and to have that support from so many companies that aren't only wanting to get their name and their brand and their message out there, but who want to build community, who want to, even if people aren't buying their product, they still want people knowing about the benefits of plant medicine and cannabis. And also for the various organizations that I run for to raise money and awareness for their causes. It's immense having just other platforms that are willing to share that message for me. So I'm immensely grateful to the number of sponsors that I've had from the beginning, including 1906 and Stash Logics, who have wanted to see me grow on this journey. And it just seems no matter what crazy idea I come up with next, they're always willing to just say, how can we help? And that's an amazing support team to have, because no one can make a massive difference by themselves. My analogy is that everyone's like a feather on a bird. One feather does not make a bird fly, but all of them working together, that's what makes the bird soar. And so that's what I see my sponsors and my family and my cheerleaders as, is those feathers that are lifting me up to soar high.
That's a beautiful ending to this. I brought it in with a perfect landing, my feathered friend.
Perfect.
So thank you so much for telling us about your work, and best of luck on all of these adventures. Where can people find out more and follow along on your journey?
Yes, thank you so much. On Facebook at You Canna Be Well, and then on Instagram at You Canna Be Well, and my personal page at Hi Coach Lia, HIGH, coach, not couch. Lia, Lia. And on the Facebook page is also where I always post my monthly events, as well as ways that you can support the various causes and organizations that I am running for. Typically, for example, if I do a 10K, I ask that if people are willing, they can donate $10 to a certain cause. Just wait till I do that full marathon, though. I'm going to be asking for 27, because I'm going to be running 27 miles through the jungle. Better make it worth it. So yes, at You Canna Be Well.
Well, that sounds great. We'll put all of those in the episode notes. And thanks so much for coming today to share about cannabis and taking care of yourself.
Thank you so much.
Greener Grass is a BlueBird Botanicals podcast. Their CBD oil supports a healthy body and a strong endocannabinoid system. They've got friendly customer service who can answer any of your questions, and the number is right there at the top of their webpage. But, per the FDA, they won't be able to make any medical claims for these nutritional supplements. That's also the reason you'll hear little about CBD on this show. There's no need for us to add more evidence about CBD when a simple Google search will give you more than you can read in a month of Sundays. So this show covers the cannabis world and more with editorial freedom from BlueBird Botanicals. Thanks for joining the Greener Grass podcast. As always, our audio alchemist is Matt Payne. The Gypsy Jazz theme music comes from Brett Van Donsel. Our beautiful bird sounds are courtesy of Lang Elliott. And I'm your host, Lex Pelger, wishing you a bright green day.